A few months ago, I started a video by telling you all some of the things you might not want to hear coming over the comm system in the middle of your duty shift. I imagine one of the things that Captain Jack neither wanted nor expected to hear was me telling him that he would have to rip this starship breakdown out of my cold, lifeless hands. Why? Because today we look at my favorite starship in all of Star Trek canon. That's right, we heard you. It's been requested multiple times and had its registry number changed even more times than it's been requested. The one and only USS Prometheus. Welcome to Trek Central, lords, ladies, and sovereigns. Love me or hate me, I am your host, Lieutenant Adam. And before we warp into this video, if you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, then make sure you hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media for daily updates on the Star Trek universe. And as always, please do let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, because if you're talking about Star Trek, we want to hear about it. Anyway, let's get into it. The prototype USS Prometheus, Naval Experiment 59650, to start with anyway, was launched from the Beta Antares shipyard located in the Antares sector on stardate 50749.5, which translates to sometime in 2374 for those of you who aren't complete nerds like me. Not sure the writers are either sometimes, but that's beside the point. She was developed in response to the Dominion threat, one of the most advanced vessels during the latter half of the 24th century and even well into the 25th. Even an alternate future showed at least one of them still active in the 26th century at the Battle of Procyon 5, Procyon 5, Procyon 5, Onion 5. Yes, that'll work. If the ship gets multiple registry numbers, then I get multiple pronunciations, damn it. When the Prometheus was launched, it was so highly classified that only 4 people in all of Starfleet were trained to operate it. Access to most of the onboard systems and even the communication system were restricted to at least level 4 clearance. The high security was, of course, necessary due to the number of cutting-edge systems. These included regenerative and metaphasic shielding, multi-vector assault mode, and some kind of advanced armor that seemed to be getting a bit popular at the time.
Ablative hull armor.
The name of it escapes me, but whatever. And let us not forget about another all-important, exceedingly good bedside-mannered experimental prototype, the EMH Mark II. Who would remind everyone who didn't or did ask that he is a doctor, not a commando. Making a joke about commando doesn't really make sense for someone who bears such a strong resemblance to a Oh, it's Andy Dick. Never mind. The ship had hollow emitters fitted on every deck, so this EMH was not confined to the sickbay, which in itself was state-of-the-art too. Using the latest in medical advancements, that's right, anybody who watched Message in a Bottle can confirm that by the 24th century, humans had evolved beyond the need for scalpels and leeches. The Prometheus was much more powerful than those Defiant class things. I feel like I just betrayed myself somehow, and came in much, much larger too, 415 meters in length, 170 meters wide, and 113 meters high, giving her 15 decks and a crew complement capacity of 141, when it wasn't being used for massive floating private blacklight parties, I suppose. I mean, what? No, I didn't say that. With its 4 primary nacelles, it maintained a sustainable cruising velocity of warp 9 and a maximum speed of warp 9.99, outrunning the previous record holders of the Intrepid class, which only managed a measly 9.975, which isn't fast at all. The Prometheus warp drive systems consisted of 4 LF50 Mod 1 advanced linear warp drive units and 1 LF12X compact linear warp drive unit, presumably 2 each of the former, for the lower and upper drive sections, and the latter for the Arrowhead saucer section. Multiple Type 13 phaser arrays and quantum photon torpedo launchers were installed as primary weapons. Primary computer systems consisted of M16 bioneural gel packs and isolinear grade 3 processors. Both the gel packs and the isolinear processors had previous incarnations used on the Intrepid class. The embarked craft kept aboard would normally include 2 shuttles and 4 shuttle pods, and the bridge had a single command chair, which is weird for Starfleet. Usually you can host an entire choir on the bridge. But this single command chair overlooked a lower set, large, singular helm and operations console, which gave everybody working on the rear consoles at the back of the bridge a full and uninterrupted view of the main view screen, as well as the captain, which, let's face it, is probably a good thing if your captain was a classically trained Shakespearean actor, famous for playing such luminaries as Richard the Lionheart, Charles Javier, and Jenny's Lucky Pickle. Every other station except for Helm, Ops, and the Captain were all mounted across the length of the room, including Tactical, facing backwards for some reason, Engineering, Mission Ops, and Environmental Control. But that's enough of the standard stuff. Let's take a look at its most impressive feature, the multi-vector assault mode. Now, I know you can say that some vessels such as the Enterprise D and, well, that's about it, for the small screen canon at least, were capable of splitting into two pieces, with the saucer essentially being a giant escape pod not capable of warp. But that was just nowhere near anime enough for the Prometheus class, so it decided to do something far superior. At least until Section 31 showed up in Discovery to blow this out of the water, or space, in this case. Whatever. By using advanced compartmentalization and automation systems, this ship was capable of splitting into 3 all-warp-capable starships, all of which also included individual navigational deflectors, phaser strips, and torpedo launchers. All 3 had independent maneuverability and attack capabilities as well, and the Prometheus could then operate kind of like a miniature attack squadron in itself, launching a 3-pronged assault on any target. The upper and lower drive sections were made up of 2 of the 4 nacelles each, whilst the primary hull would sprout 2 vastly smaller retractable nacelles located above and below the primary hull. Kind of curious as to how that works, as it was stipulated that ships with multiple nacelles were required to see each other in order to create a warp field, but hey, what do we know? By default, each section was controlled remotely by the ship's sophisticated tactical computer, which was based on the bridge of the main hull, which, as we've already discussed in other videos, is a perfect and fantastic tactical location, protected from damage from all sides. Yes. Once separation had been completed, the computer would immediately request an attack pattern, and alternatively, a highly skilled tactical officer could coordinate all 3 semi-manually in emergency situations, or with each section manned by a skeleton crew. The mode could be achieved in just a hair over 10 seconds, and depending on the distance of the parts, could be reintegrated just as quickly. Oh god, now I'm thinking about what would happen if somebody brought one home to a starbase with a piece missing. Could they just order a replacement? Is it like a giant Lego kit? The biggest challenge in the Prometheus involved the design of the Warp Propulsion System, the WPS, which required 3 separate reaction chambers. In the engineering section, which was split into 2, it was achieved by using a unique design of warp core. During normal operations, when the ship was all in one piece, matter was fed in at the top of the core and antimatter in the bottom as usual. The fuel stream would then pass directly through upper and lower reaction chambers before continuing to its meeting point in a conventional central reaction chamber. But that central reaction chamber lay on a separation plane, and it was shut down when the ship split. Additional matter and antimatter feeds were then activated to feed the now independent reaction chambers. When separated, the primary hull operated using a horizontal Defiant-style warp core, which was kept in standby mode until it was needed. While combined, the engineering WPS was able to operate on an efficiency level comparable to, and in fact, in excess of any contemporary starship. In the separated mode, it lost a degree of efficiency, but could still maintain high warp speeds. The Prometheus was designed for deep space tactical assignments, with an operational mission range of 1 year, essentially outclassing the Defiant class in many ways. I feel like even my scriptwriters are having a go at me with this one.
I wonder how many times we can make Adam say that something's better than the Defiant.
But despite the highly classified nature of the ship, the Romulan boarding party seemed to get a handle on the assault mode pretty easily and disabled a Nebula class, the USS Bonchun. Bonchune? Boncham. Bonjour. Whatever. Enough silliness, even I'm starting to get sick of it. Coinciding with this capture by the Romulans, an EMH Mark I was sent to the ship through a data stream, all the way from the Delta Quadrant and the USS Voyager. This EMH would activate the EMH Mark II, and together they would formulate a plan to stop the Romulans. During an assault on the captured Prometheus by 2 Defiant-class starships and 1 Akira-class, the EMH Mark I and Mark II team inadvertently activated the multi-vector assault mode and were able to turn the tide of battle and easily destroy a Romulan Dideridex-class warbird with just a few phaser bursts. Unfortunately, the prototype vessel's commanding officer was never officially named, as the mission it was on at the time was classified, before the Romulans boarded and killed everyone, that is. In extended canon, Admiral Ross's successor flagship to his Intrepid-class USS Bellerophon was a Prometheus class, named the USS Cerberus. Cerberus being a great name for a Prometheus-class starship, considering it can split into 3. Another was, of course, the USS Heracles, the third to be named after a notable figure of Greek mythology. But in the closing moments of Star Trek Voyager's finale episode, Endgame, a beautifully written episode that wasn't at all rushed, a Prometheus class can be seen, though it's not canonically clear which. It would be a nice gesture for it to have been the prototype herself, as that was the one that initially helped Voyager to make contact with Earth several years before. Rick Sternbach was posed with several unusual challenges when designing the Prometheus as well. The script from Message in a Bottle described a starship that possessed a multi-vector assault mode, making it capable of separating into 5 autonomous pieces. It was a prototype vessel that had to look extremely advanced. The challenge began with making a ship that looked good in join form, but could split into 5 and still somehow look good on their own, since it was Star Trek, governed by basic science that made plausible sense too. It meant that all 5 would have to have independent warp cores, independent impulse engines, independent weapon systems, and independent everything else as well. The streamlined design was an evolution of Voyager's lengthened saucer and wing-like pylons, though. The basic shape was only the starting point, but figuring out how it was to divide into 5? Something else entirely. Now, fair credit to Sternbach, he worked out the aft body, famed for being the engineering hull, could split horizontally, each sporting 2 nacelles, noted in the sketches as the upper and lower warp hull, which immediately required the ship to have 2 warp cores. More likely 5 matter-antimatter reactors if all 5 parts were to be doing combat at warp. Think of the faff required to create 5 ships, separating at warp to disable the Bonshun, and then in combat to destroy the Warbird, cumulatively on screen for only 20 seconds. And yes, our writer was picky enough to single out the 3 individual moments that they could have been seen, but depicted by the 3-ship version it was scaled back to. I mean, we actually did the math on this. It was 20 seconds. And for those fact-checking trolls that are undoubtedly in my audience today, I'll break it down for you. In the episode Message in a Bottle, 11 minutes 34 to 11 minutes 41, 12 minutes 5 seconds to 12 minutes 9 seconds, and 42 minutes 39 seconds to 42 minutes 47 seconds. Between all 3 appearances, 20 seconds. Come at me. No, don't. Shuttlecraft were capable of warp, so the smaller 2 attack craft wouldn't be a problem. But the question was, how could small groups of coils be able to drive the larger forward hull? And would they need to be hidden to fool the bad guys? Adding to the 3 portions we're already familiar with, the additional 4th and 5th were to be a captain's yacht and a built-up bridge module. Now, initial designs for the nacelles were to be swept back, like the Sovereign class, which was being developed at the same time. However, to keep it more compact, they were swept forward, similar to the sleek X-29 jet aircraft that exists in real life. The VFX department asked for some articulation, so the 2 warp nacelles on the saucer were put on extending arms. The dorsal, which extended upwards, was seen blink and you'll miss it briefly in the episode Message in a Bottle at around the 11:34 mark, while the ventral dropped into the empty space previously occupied by the engineering hull. Rick also produced drawings showing parts that were only visible when the ship was separated, including one of the engineering hulls still docked with only the saucer detached. As the Prometheus was an experimental vessel, it was given the registration number NX59650, which makes it considerably lower than the proposed NX74913, which suggested that the development project had been in place quite some time before Voyager, which was NCC 74656, and even the Defiant at NX74205, which makes perfect in-universe sense, and has absolutely nothing to do with any rumors that the interior sets and the exterior CGI visuals were produced with completely different registries. Yeah, that wasn't a thing. Stop making stuff up. For some more added trivia, Starfleet actually had more than one starship named Prometheus. As well as the experimental ship we saw on Voyager, there was a Nebula class that appeared in the DS9 episode Second Sight. You could say we could presume that the latter was destroyed, leaving the name open to be given to the as-yet unnamed NX project, which will make it quite a nod to the ship disabled by the new Prometheus, the previously terribly pronounced Nebula-class USS Bonchun. And okay, fine, I'll clear up the registries thing as well. They often cause confusion, and they are a result of a conflict of interest, I guess you could say, between the VFX and scenic art departments. On the whole, the ship is registered NX59650, whilst on internal displays it is NX74913. Registries are normally sequential, so the higher they are, the later the ship is commissioned. The scenic art department figured that meant the registry would be much higher considering the year the ship was launched, whereas the VFX team used a lower number to imply the ship had been in development for some time, as far back as the early 2360s perhaps. Both have merit. Some ships may be registered when they are ready for launch, others when they enter the design phase if it's the first of its class, or the construction phase if it's one of an existing class. Who knows? Do they? So we can surmise that the Prometheus is another OP badass ship we got to see very little of due to overshadowing the hero ship of the series, which is probably why the next two times we saw it were a fleeting shot in Enterprise episode Azati Prime and Voyager's Endgame. But what are your thoughts on the Prometheus class? Is there something we should get to see again? In a more than a glancing shot out the window of another ridiculously shaped ship? Enterprise J! Is she pretty enough? Good enough? Or just plain over the top? An argument could be made to scale it back further to a two-piece due to concerns or complications of splitting a highly explosive warp core in two whilst in use, and then rarely bother to use the epic separation ability anyway. I suppose that's enough for now. And if you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. For now, I've been Lieutenant Adam. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper, my friends.